Well, many thanks indeed for staying with us. This is Business Nigeria. Wherever you're watching from around the world, we are live here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, has issued a statement on the state of the economy, which is also, the industry has also preferred solutions. The statement was signed by its Director General, Dr. Chinyere Almona, to usher in the year 2023. The Chamber in 2022 considered various issues as they emerged, looking at how these issues affected the business community and made very useful and practical recommendations towards having a thriving and enabling environment, business environment, I must say. Well, in this statement, the Chamber has reviewed the year 2022 and projected an outlook for the year 2023. Let's get after it now and dissect this critical statement with the Vice President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa. Thank you indeed, Mr. Idahosa, for agreeing to speak with us here on Business Nigeria. So I understand the Chamber, in fulfilling its role as an economic think tank and an advocacy body, is reviewing the economy at regular intervals through various events, platforms, and of course on various private sectors issues. But I wonder just how exactly do you have, just what exactly do we have on our hands here, and just how concerned is the LCCI?
Well, thank you. The LCCI has membership across the entire economy, from the largest national corporates to the smallest SMEs in Nigeria. Essentially, all the large multinationals in this country are members of the sector. So wherever you are, if you have any concerns in any sector of the economy, it simply translates into LCCI being concerned, because we represent the voice of all of these members in all the sectors of the economy. So that's really the background to the regular statements and positions taken by LCCI. We look at the entire economic space. We are not sector specific. We are looking at the whole economy and how it affects various sectors. As we know today, a lot of sectors are heavily impacted negatively. A few sectors are doing extremely well. We are talking about the ICT, the entertainment industry. They are doing very well. But a lot of other sectors are impacted by various challenges, from foreign exchange to power to poverty that is not allowing consumers to buy their products and services, and to unpredictable movements in key variables such as inflation and access to foreign exchange and the cost of borrowing. So there are quite a range of matters that continue to give concern to any operator in the Nigerian economy. And that all of that leads into the concerns that the Lagos Chamber of Commerce will always have to highlight those concerns. And as you said, also recommendations, because we operate in the economy, so we see opportunities for addressing those concerns. And our consistent position is that we should take benefit of opportunities that are there to address whatever challenges that they have. Because fundamentally, the country is one of the perhaps top 10 countries in the world with the kind of resources, opportunities to grow a very large leading economy.
So, well, let's talk some of the projections of the LCCI in 2023, because the industry says it expects to see growth in some sectors such as the manufacturing, agriculture, transport, telecommunications, and trade. Talk to us from that window. Just why these sectors and just what kind of growth do you expect to see? Positive or negative growth?
Well, essentially, when we are talking about growth, we are looking at positive growth. If we are talking of declines, then we'll be addressing those sectors. The sectors you mentioned have shown capacity to continue growing because of the pretty strong advantages that we have as a country, except of course manufacturing, where growing manufacturing is against very strong challenges like power, for example. But what Nigerians have shown, including those in manufacturing, is the resilience the capacity to address those challenges and not just cope with them, but be able to override them and succeed. So it's that resilience that is giving the growth that we are seeing. But essentially what we are saying is that where we can grow at 7, 8, or 10%, if the economic space was right, we are now seeing growth of 1 to 2 or 3% across the sectors we have mentioned, except for telecom that is probably doing more than 4 or 5%. So if you take out telecom, you take out the entertainment and the creative industry generally, the entire creative industry, the telecom and ICT, general communication and telecommunications. Take out those industries, every other sector that is growing at the low end of the growth space, which is 1 or 2%. And for a country like Nigeria that is growing in population about 2.5 to 3%, anything below 5% growth in any sector does not really amount to significant real growth. So that's essentially is the picture LCCI wants to let the whole country see, that we need to be growing generally at about 5 to 7%. Go back to where we were for many years as members of the so-called 7% club. Countries that are growing at 7% or more. We were in that club for a long time, but in recent times, we are falling to recession in some cases, and in some cases just seeing growth of 2%, 3%. So which is not addressing our aspirations to become a major economy, one of the top economies in the world. If we are growing anything below 4 or 5% in any year, we are not moving in that direction.
Mr. Idahosa, allow me to take you up on some specific questions as regards some of these sectors. And let's begin with the agriculture sector, where the sector witnessed quite a lot of challenges ranging from insecurity in the country, poor road network to connect markets, high cost of farm inputs, and of course, recently, just last year, the flood and disaster caused by climate change. In 2023, are you optimistic about the federal government's intervention through targeted financing? And the part two of that question would be, just how can we boost agricultural production, create jobs, and lower the spiking food inflation here in the country?
Well, with agriculture, there are essentially two things that needs to be done. One is security. We need to still continue the fight for security, secure enough for farmers, small or big, to go freely to their farms every day and do the only business they know without having to pay a lot of extra costs for personal security for themselves and security for their farms. That is, in fact, most important constraints. The other constraints, of course, are infrastructure around the farming business or the agricultural business, the quality of roads, the quality of facilities like power, because a lot of agricultural activity requires power, the quality of technical equipment, from tractors to whatever harvesters that they need. But the big two ones are security, and essential infrastructure. To get to farms, produce, and get it out of farm to market or to processing facilities. The entire road network or rail that will facilitate that is far suboptimal at this stage. They are not working anywhere near where they ought to be doing. So those two aspects are dealt with. Generally, it's fair to say that access to finance is not a significant problem to the agri sector. There's significant funding being provided by various agencies, from the central bank, the Bank of Agriculture, various the commercial banks themselves. So funding is not a very major issue. Two issues are security and infrastructure that enable farmers to freely do their business without fear for their life or destruction of their crops when they have invested so much time and resources in growing those farms. So if those two major issues are addressed, security and infrastructure around the agricultural business, then you can see very significant growth. Anything between 5–6% is very affordable because we have the land, we have the farmers who have the knowledge to do it, and definitely they have access to funding.
Yes, I mean, so the other sector, of course, is the manufacturing sector, which you captured earlier in one of your submissions. The sector suffered from headwinds like scarcity of forex for imports of inputs, weakened consumer demand due to weak purchasing power, high energy costs, logistical challenges, policy uncertainties, and harsh regulatory environment. I wonder, with these factors persisting in 2023, are we likely to record any growth at all in the manufacturing sector? I know the Lagos Chamber of Commerce has been very, very concerned about Nigeria's manufacturing sector.
Well, the big concern is growing at the kind of rate that is very, very suboptimal. So if manufacturing is growing at 1 or 2%, it is not really meeting the aspiration of the country. And all the headwinds, all the issues you mentioned remain as they were last year and could be even worse. But we are seeing some improvements in terms of some major infrastructures that enable movement of raw materials and finished goods. The various bridges that are being completed, Second Niger Bridge, the local Weto Bridge, the Boni Road, the Boni Bodo Road, the major highways, Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, Enugu, Port Harcourt. So a number of major highways have been completed, and that means much faster and cheaper transportation for manufactured goods and raw materials. But the pace at which this infrastructure is being completed and the other major issues of inflation and access to foreign exchange means that you do not see an aggregation of improvements. You have a little bit of improvement here and there. You need a convergence of significant improvements in all the issues, in access to foreign currency, in a lowering inflation, in increasing incomes, consumer incomes, so that they can buy more. Because part of the issue manufacturers are facing is, even with all these issues they do produce, and you have products sitting in the warehouse because consumers cannot afford them. With inflation, their income is not rising, so their capacity to buy is rapidly reducing, very rapidly reducing. With inflation now going beyond 21, 22, we don't know how quickly we can arrest it. That is why, essentially, we're saying that manufacturing should grow much faster than it is growing. It's now growing, but at a very, very, very low suboptimal rate for a country like Nigeria. That's essentially the point that LCCI is making.
Well, we have to wind down on our conversation now, Mr. Idahosa, but let's turn to Nigeria's public debts, because with the approved plan of the federal government to restructure its ways and means loans of 23 trillion naira, Nigeria's total debt right now is standing somewhere around 67.7 trillion naira by the end of 2022. It's projected to be at around 77 trillion naira somewhere around May this year. Clearly, I wonder what exactly you think would be the cost implications of our borrowings and spending.
It's showing in the budget already. We are spending more than 100% of our revenues to serve debts. So if we have a budget of 21 trillion, and our revenue is 10 trillion. That's half of our expenditure. It means half of what we intend to spend next year is just going to be borrowed.
Positive, Abi.
And most of that borrowing is going to go to services. So the point that has been made is that we cannot afford to do that for a long time. We need to reduce borrowing And there are clear paths to reducing borrowing that we have canvassed from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, moving from borrowing to financing a lot of this by equity investments. And you immediately begin to reduce the borrowing. Once we can reduce borrowing by equity investments and public-private partnerships, borrowing, debt borrowing will begin to go down very quickly. So those are the things we are campaigning at. We do hope that at some point government will look at that significantly. Even though they understand it, they are responding to those suggestions, but implementing them at a very large scale is what will reduce the borrowing, because it is not sustainable way we are seeing already in terms of the capacity of the country to generate revenue. If we were generating 3 or 4 times the revenue we generate now, then servicing this debt will not be a major issue.
Well, Mr. Idahosa, maybe in 3 minutes, 180 seconds, speak to the next Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria. The elections is only about 50 days or less.
Well, what we have said again and again is that the new president can quickly reverse certain things. Number one, reverse the amount of borrowing are doing in specific areas like railways. As we have done in Nigeria with the Nigerian Communications Commission, we should immediately, the president comes and set up a Nigerian Rail Transport Commission and begin to issue licenses for operators in the rail industry and simply bring an end to borrowing for the rail industry. I think if the new president does that as one of the first things, he will have started to hit the nail right at the head as far as borrowing is concerned. Now we expect the president, a lot of people expect the new president to be bold enough, quote unquote, to take out the subsidy. But the new president must immediately say, what is the relief that Nigerians are going to earn when we take out the subsidy? And also the new president needs to get the ASU problem done. Some of that can be done from money saved from removing the fuel subsidy to get all our universities back and running. These are like the very hot buttons on the president's table as he arrives in Aso Rock on the 1st of June.
Well, we'll wait and see. The elections is just a few weeks away. The countdown officially, we're tracking that, all of that here on TVC News. But it's a fine place to anchor a conversation with you, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI. Thank you indeed for your insights, perspective, and analysis on the program.
Thank you.